a shy waitress, a ruthless billionaire, and his silent, deaf mother. What happens when they sit down at the most exclusive restaurant in New York? Maya Thompson was just trying to survive her shift, hiding from her past and drowning in debt. But when she saw the billionaire's mother make a secret, desperate gesture, Maya did something no one expected. She answered back. The simple words she signed sent a shockwave through the family, exposed a devastating secret, and proved that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. This is a story of how a silent conversation changed everything. The air inside L'Étoile wasn't just air. It was a carefully curated atmosphere of old money, lemon-infused polish, and the faint, sweet smell of $1,000 wine breathing in crystal decanters. For Maya Thompson, it was the sound of a gilded cage. At 24, she was a ghost in this world, moving between tables of hedge fund managers and political figures with a practiced invisibility. Her shyness wasn't a quirk. It was a shield, forged from a past she'd fled and a present that was suffocating her. Her uniform, a starched black apron over a white blouse, was immaculate, but beneath it, she was fraying. Her mother's medical bills were piled on her tiny Bronx apartment's kitchen counter, a monument to their mutual desperation. Maya's paycheck from L'Étoile, while better than most, evaporated the moment it hit her account. "Thompson," Mr. Henderson, the restaurant's severe maître d'idyll, barked. His voice, perpetually coated in disdain, cut through the dining room's expensive hum. "Section 4, the Sterling Party. Don't mess it up." A cold pit formed in Maya's stomach. The Sterling Party? That meant him. Nathaniel Sterling, a man whose face was plastered on Forbes and the Wall Street Journal as the Wolf of Wall Street's heir. He was known for his brutal business tactics and, according to restaurant gossip, for eviscerating servers who made the slightest error. "Yes, Mr. Henderson." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Speak up, girl," he snapped. "Yes, Mr. Henderson," she repeated, a fraction louder, her cheeks burning. As she prepped the table, Jessica, another waitress, glided by. Jessica, with her perfect blonde chignon and shark-like smile, always seemed to thrive on the drama. "The Sterlings?" "Oh, honey, good luck," Jessica smirked, adjusting her own apron. "I heard he made a waiter at Per Se cry last week because his Evian was too warm." And his fiancée, Sophia Dubois? A real piece of work. She looks at staff like we're insects. Maya just nodded, focusing on the alignment of the baccarat crystal glasses. She didn't have the energy for Jessica's games. She just needed to get through the night, pay the rent, and maybe, just maybe, have enough left over for her mother's new prescription. Her shyness was compounded by a deep, lingering grief. Her younger brother Leo had been her world. He was born profoundly deaf, and Maya had learned American Sign Language, ASL, before she'd even mastered cursive, just so she could be his voice. They had a secret world, a language of hands and expressions that no one else could penetrate. When Leo passed away from a complication of cystic fibrosis 3 years ago, a part of Maya's voice had died with him. She hadn't signed, really signed, since his funeral. The movements felt like a betrayal, a conversation with a ghost. Now she was just a shadow, hiding from an abusive ex-boyfriend she'd left back in Chicago, praying her new, quiet life wouldn't be disturbed. She clutched the heavy silver tray, her knuckles white. She wasn't just shy, she was terrified, and she was about to serve the most terrifying man in New York. At precisely 8:02 p.m. they arrived. The restaurant's ambient chatter dipped, then rose again, altered by the new center of gravity. Nathaniel Nate Sterling was exactly as imposing as his reputation. He wore a dark Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary, and he moved with an impatient energy, as if the world was struggling to keep up with him. Beside him, radiating a brittle, expensive beauty, was Sophia Dubois. She was draped in a silk dress the color of champagne, a large diamond, a flashing, cold star on her left hand. Her smile was bright, but it never, not for a second, reached her eyes. She scanned the room with a look of bored appraisal, her hand resting possessively on Nate's arm. Between them, almost an afterthought, was an older woman. She was impeccably dressed in a navy Chanel jacket, her grey hair coiffed perfectly. This was Margaret Sterling, the family matriarch, the widow of the original Wolf. But unlike her son's aggressive presence, she was utterly, profoundly silent. Her eyes, however, missed nothing. They were a sharp, intelligent blue, and they darted from the ornate flower arrangements to the faces of the other diners, as if searching for something she never found. "Henderson," Nate said, not as a greeting, but as a summons. "My table." "Of course, Mr. Sterling. Right this way. Your server tonight will be Maya." Henderson gestured to Maya, who felt her spine turn to ice. Nate's gaze flickered over her, dismissive and brief. "Fine. We need water." "Still. And a bottle of the Aero 5 Waitress. Now." He didn't wait for a response, already pulling out the chair for Sophia, but not for his mother. Maya watched as Margaret seated herself, her movements graceful, but tinged with a deep-seated weariness. Sophia and Nate immediately fell into a low, intense conversation about some upcoming merger, their voices a rapid-fire volley that excluded the third person at their table. "Nate, darling, you must tell the board that if they don't approve the acquisition, we pull our funding." "It's simple," Sophia said, her voice sharp. "It's not that simple, Sophia. The optics are bad." They talked around Margaret, through her. They didn't look at her, didn't gesture, didn't even acknowledge her presence beyond the initial seating. Margaret Sterling, matriarch of one of the most powerful families in America, was invisible. She picked up her water glass, her eyes fixed on the tablecloth, her expression unreadable. Maya approached, her hands shaking so badly she was afraid she'd drop the heavy wine bottle. "Mr. Sterling?" she whispered. "Just open it," he said, not looking up from his phone. As Maya fumbled with the corkscrew, her hand slick with nervous sweat, Sophia let out an exaggerated, impatient sigh. Is this her first day? "Honestly, Nate." "Just hurry up," Nate said, his tone biting. Maya's cheeks flushed crimson. She finally managed to extract the cork and pour a small tasting amount. Nate waved a hand dismissively. "It's fine. Just pour." As she poured the dark red liquid, Sophia turned to her future mother-in-law and shouted, as one does to the hard of hearing, "Are you enjoying yourself, Margaret? It's a lovely restaurant, isn't it?" Margaret simply smiled, a tight, polite, vacant smile, and nodded. It was a mask. Sophia, satisfied, turned back to Nate. Maya began to list the evening specials, her voice trembling. "Tonight we have a pan-seared scallop with a—" She trailed off. Under the table, hidden from Nate and Sophia's view, Margaret Sterling's left hand was moving. It wasn't a fidget, it was a sign, small, furtive, almost desperate. Maya's breath hitched. She knew that sign. It wasn't complex. It was the simple, childlike sign for help. Maya froze. Her training, her fear, her shyness, it all screamed at her to ignore it. "It's not your business. Pour the wine, take the order, walk away." Jessica was watching from across the room, a vulture's grin on her face, just waiting for Maya to fail. Mr. Henderson was hovering near the hostess stand, his eyes boring into her. But Maya wasn't looking at them. She was looking at Margaret Sterling, a woman drowning in a sea of noise she couldn't hear, surrounded by family who wouldn't speak her language. Maya saw her brother, Leo. She saw the same frustration, the same loneliness, the same desperate plea to be seen. Nate looked up, annoyed. "The specials! Are you going to finish, or do you just stand there?" Maya's heart was a drum against her ribs. She looked past Nate, past Sophia, and directly into Margaret's startled blue eyes. Slowly, almost trembling, Maya lifted her right hand to her chest. She kept her movement small, below the eye line of the others. "Are you okay?" she signed. The effect was instantaneous. Margaret Sterling's polite, vacant mask didn't just crack. It shattered. Her eyes widened. Her mouth fell open in a small O of disbelief. She physically recoiled in her chair, a tiny gasp escaping her. "What's wrong?" Nate demanded, finally turning to his mother. "Mother, what is it? Do you need your pills?" Sophia let out a tisk. She's probably just overwhelmed. It's so loud in here for her. But Margaret wasn't looking at her son. She was staring at Maya, her eyes filling with tears. She raised her own hands, her movements no longer furtive but clear and deliberate. You sign. You understand me?" The entire table went silent. Nate and Sophia, seeing the interaction, turned to Maya. Their expressions were identical. Pure, unadulterated shock. What is she doing?" Sophia asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "What are you doing?" Nate's gaze was sharp as steel. "Answer her," he commanded. Maya took a shaky breath. She looked at Nate, then back to his mother. She gave Margaret a small, watery smile. "Yes," Maya signed. "My younger brother was deaf. I grew up with ASL." A single tear tracked down Margaret's cheek, but she was smiling now, a real, radiant smile that transformed her face. She looked 20 years younger. She let out a small, breathy laugh, and her hands began to fly, her signs rapid and full of pent-up energy. "I can't believe it. No one ever—" "Nate, she signs! This young woman, she signs!" Of course, Nate and Sophia didn't understand. They just watched, dumbfounded, as this bizarre, silent conversation unfolded. "What is she saying?" Nate demanded, his voice tight. She's just surprised, sir," Maya said, her voice still shaky. "Don't talk to him." "Talk to me," Margaret signed, her expression suddenly fierce. "Please, what is your name?" "Maya." "My name is Maya Thompson." "Maya. What a beautiful name. Tell me, Maya, are the scallops any good?" "I hate it when they're rubbery. Sophia always orders them for me, and they're always rubbery." Maya couldn't help but smile. "They are excellent, ma'am. Our chef sears them in brown butter and serves them with a sunchoke puree. They're very tender." "Good. I'll have those. And the burrata to start, not the kale salad. I despise kale." "What is she saying?" Nate repeated, his patience gone. He looked from Maya to his mother and back again, his billionaire's control completely short-circuited. He was irrelevant in this conversation, and he knew it. "She's asking about the scallops, sir," Maya said, turning to him. "And she would like the burrata to start." Sophia scoffed, her perfectly painted lips twisting. "That's impossible. Margaret always has the kale salad. It's good for her blood pressure. And she likes the scallops I order." Maya looked at Sophia, her shyness momentarily eclipsed by a spark of courage. "I believe she said she despises kale, ma'am, and she would like the burrata." Sophia's face turned a dangerous shade of pale. Nate just stared, utterly speechless. For the first time all night, Maya had the power. And across the table, Margaret Sterling was watching her with an expression of profound, unadulterated gratitude. The rest of the dinner was a surreal performance. Nate and Sophia lapsed into a tense, brooding silence, watching as Maya and Margaret communicated. What had been a stilted, awkward meal became a lively, animated, and completely silent dialogue. "You are so thin, Maya," Margaret signed, her brow furrowed with concern as Maya cleared the appetizer plates. "Are you eating enough?" Maya blushed. "I try, Mum. It's expensive, living in New York." "Call me Margaret." "Mum makes me feel 100. My son." She glanced at Nate, who was busy scrolling furiously on his phone. "He's a good man, but he's forgotten how to listen. He only knows how to fix. He thinks my deafness is a problem to be managed, not a life to be lived." "My brother Leo was the same," Maya signed, her hands moving with a fluency she thought she'd lost. "He hated when people shouted. He always said, 'My ears are broken, not my brain.'" Margaret's eyes lit up, and she tapped her chest. "Exactly. That's it exactly. Sophia." Her expression darkened. "She treats me like a piece of furniture. A fragile, stupid piece of furniture." At that exact moment, Sophia looked up. "What? What did she say about me?" Maya felt a jolt of panic. She was just complimenting the restaurant's decor, Ms. Dubois." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "I don't believe you. You're probably in this together, trying to get a bigger tip. How pathetic." "She is a snake," Margaret signed, her movements sharp and angry. "Be careful of her." The main courses arrived. Maya set down Margaret's scallops. Margaret took a bite, chewed thoughtfully, and then beamed, giving Maya 2 thumbs up, while Nate and Sophia argued quietly about an upcoming charity gala. Margaret leaned forward slightly. She waited until both of them were looking down at their plates. Her movements became small again, secretive. "Maya, I need your help. I am trapped, not physically, but in my life." "What do you mean, Margaret?" Maya signed, her heart pounding. This was going too far. "Sophia, I don't trust her. She's not who she says she is. She's always on the phone with her lawyers, always talking about prenuptial agreements and securing my future. She isolates me. She tells Nate I'm confused when I try to warn him. He doesn't believe me. He thinks I'm just jealous." A cold dread washed over Maya. This was a family drama she had no business being in. She was a waitress, not a detective. "I'm so sorry," Maya signed, her hands trembling. "But I can't get involved. This is my job. I could be fired." Margaret's face fell, the light dimming from her eyes. She looked back down at her plate, the lonely, invisible matriarch once more. The sight broke Maya's heart. As they prepared to leave, Nate paid the bill, a staggering amount, and left a surprisingly standard 20% tip. Not a penny more. He was clearly unsettled. As Sophia and Nate walked ahead, Margaret paused by Maya. She fumbled in her vintage Hermes clutch. For a second, Maya thought she was going to palm her a $100 bill. Instead, Margaret pressed a small, folded piece of paper into Maya's hand, her fingers gripping Maya's with surprising strength. Margaret looked her dead in the eyes and mouthed the words, "Please help me." Before Maya could react, Nate called back, "Mother, come on, the car is here." Margaret turned and walked away. Maya was left standing by the table, the crumpled note burning a hole in her palm, and the eyes of a very jealous Jessica burning a hole in her back. The rest of the shift was a blur. Jessica was relentlessly hostile. "Sucking up to the old lady, were we?" she hissed as they polished silverware. "Figured you'd get a pity tip. Disgusting." "I was just doing my job, Jessica," Maya said, her voice weak. "Sure you were," Jessica sneered. "We all saw you, flirting with that old woman's son, probably." You think you're better than us just because you can wiggle your fingers? Mr. Henderson cornered her by the kitchen door. Thompson, I don't know what you pulled at that table, but let me be clear. You are here to serve food, not to perform parlor tricks. You made the other guests uncomfortable. One more stunt like that, and you're out. Maya just nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Yes, sir. She fled the restaurant at 1 a.m., the note still clenched in her fist. She didn't read it until she was back in her cramped apartment, the sounds of the city's late-night sirens her only company. Her fingers, stained with red wine and smelling of lemon polish, carefully unfolded the heavy cream cardstock. The handwriting was elegant, precise. Dearest Maya, I know I am asking the impossible. You are a stranger, and this is not your burden. But you are the only person in 5 years who has truly seen me. I am not a fool, and I am not confused. I believe Sophia Dubois is a dangerous fraud. My son is blind to her. He is a good man, but he is stubborn, and he thinks he knows best. He sees my deafness as a weakness, and she exploits that. Please meet me. I can't talk at home. She monitors everything. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Bemelman's Bar at the Carlisle Hotel. I will wait for 1 hour. If you don't come, I will understand, but I am begging you. Margaret Sterling Maya sank onto her lumpy sofa, her head in her hands. The Carlisle, Bemelman's Bar. This was insane. She was a waitress being accused of parlor tricks, and now a billionaire's mother was asking her to be a co-conspirator. She was torn. Her instincts screamed to run. She had her own problems, her mother's health, her ex who still sent threatening texts from Chicago, the looming shadow of eviction. Getting involved with the Sterlings was lighting a match next to a powder keg, but then she pictured Margaret's face, the desperation. He thinks my deafness is a problem to be managed, not a life to be lived. Maya knew that pain. Leo had felt it every day. She spent a sleepless night, the note on her nightstand. By morning, she had made a decision. She couldn't ignore the plea. It felt too much like ignoring Leo. The next day, she showed up for her lunch shift, her nerves frayed. Jessica was oddly pleasant. "Rough night, huh, Maya?" Jessica said, almost sweetly, as they passed in the hallway. "Don't worry. I have a feeling things are about to change around here." Maya found the comment strange, but she was too preoccupied to analyze it. She just needed to get through the shift and get to the Carlisle. At 1:30 p.m., just as the lunch rush was dying down, Mr. Henderson emerged from his office. He was flanked by 2 stern-looking security guards from the hotel L'Etoile was situated in. "Maya Thompson," he said, his voice ringing with grim satisfaction. The dining room went quiet. "Miss Thompson, we've had a significant discrepancy in last night's inventory," Henderson said, loud enough for the remaining diners and all the staff to hear. "A bottle of 1998 Chateau Margaux, valued at $3,500, has gone missing from the cellar." Maya's blood ran cold. What does that have to do with me?" "We reviewed the security footage," Henderson continued, a smug look on his face. "You were seen accessing the cellar at 11:04 p.m., right after the Sterling party left. No one else entered after you." I went to get a dustpan," Maya stammered. "I dropped a glass." "Really?" "Because Jessica," he gestured to the waitress, who was standing nearby, looking tragically conflicted, "did a routine check of the staff lockers this morning." The second guard stepped forward, holding a clear evidence bag. Inside was an empty, very expensive-looking bottle of wine. "We found this in your locker, Miss Thompson, tucked under your jacket." Maya's world tilted. "What? No, that's not mine. I've never—" "Jessica, you know I—" Jessica put a hand to her chest. Maya, I can't believe you'd do this. I thought you were struggling, but stealing? This is a frame-up. Maya's voice was high with panic. I didn't. She planted it. Jessica, tell them. Enough, Henderson snapped. We have the footage and the evidence. L'Etoile has a zero-tolerance policy for theft. You are fired. Give me your apron. Mr. Henderson, please. Maya was crying now, the humiliation absolute. Give me the apron, or we will have you arrested for grand larceny. Numb, defeated, Maya untied the strings of her black apron. She was marched through the service entrance and shoved out into the alley, the jeers of her co-workers following her. She was jobless, penniless, and now branded a thief. And in her pocket, the note from Margaret Sterling felt like a ton of bricks. Maya sat on a bench in Central Park, the autumn air cold against her tear-streaked face. She was ruined. Her one source of income was gone. She'd be blacklisted from every fine dining restaurant in the city. Henderson would make sure of that. She looked at her watch. 2:40 p.m. She was only a few blocks from the Carlisle. Her first instinct was to go home, crawl into bed, and disappear. But a new, cold anger was starting to replace the panic. Jessica. This was Jessica's doing. But why? Just for jealousy? It seemed too extreme. She is a snake. Be careful of her. Margaret's warning echoed in her head. What if this wasn't just Jessica? I thought you were struggling, but stealing? The line was too rehearsed. And the wine. A $3,500 bottle. That was serious. Maya stood up. Her server uniform was wrinkled. Her eyes were red. But she didn't care. She had nothing left to lose. She marched down 76th Street and into the opulent, discreet lobby of the Carlisle Hotel. Bemelman's bar was a hushed, whimsical room, its walls covered in the famous murals of Ludwig Bemelmans. It smelled of old leather and gin. In a dark corner booth, Margaret Sterling sat alone, a cup of tea untouched in front of her. She looked up as Maya approached, her face etched with anxiety. When she saw Maya's state, the uniform, the tear tracks, her expression hardened. She gestured for Maya to sit. Maya slid into the booth, her hands shaking. She couldn't sign. Not here. She fumbled for a pen and a napkin. I was just fired, she wrote. They accused me of stealing an expensive bottle of wine. They found it in my locker. Someone framed me. Margaret read the napkin, her lips thinning into a grim line. She took the pen. Who? A waitress named Jessica. She hates me. But... Maya paused, then wrote. It felt planned. Too planned. Margaret nodded slowly, her sharp eyes scanning the room. She reached into her large leather tote bag and pulled out a thick, manila envelope. She pushed it across the table. Maya opened it. Inside were not just a few papers, but a full private investigator's report. There were photographs, bank statements, legal documents. The report was on Sophia Dubois. Maya's eyes scanned the pages, her horror growing. Sophia Dubois was not an heiress. Her family, the Dubois family of Lyon, France, had been bankrupt for a decade, a fact they'd successfully hidden from the American press. Sophia herself was fleeing a mountain of debt and 2 breach-of-contract lawsuits in Switzerland. The PI had tracked her movements, her desperate attempts to secure a whale. She had met Jessica, the report noted, at a high-end exclusive gym, Equinox on Park Avenue, nearly 6 months ago. Jessica had been her inside source at the restaurants Nate frequented. It all clicked into place. This wasn't just workplace jealousy. Margaret, Maya wrote, her hand shaking so hard the letters were barely legible. The waitress who framed me. Jessica. She knows Sophia. This report says they've met. Margaret read the note, and for the first time, Maya saw real fear in her eyes. "Then it's worse than I thought," Margaret wrote, her elegant script suddenly spidery. "They're working together. Sophia must have found out you could sign. You were a threat. You were a way for me to communicate. She had to get rid of you." Maya felt sick. She'd been fired, her reputation destroyed, simply because she'd been kind, because she spoke a language of silence. "What do I do?" Maya wrote. "I have no job. No one will believe me." Margaret looked at Maya, her gaze intense. She took the pen and wrote, "My son. You must show this to Nate. He won't listen to me. He thinks I'm a bitter, old woman. But this is proof. And you are a neutral party. You are the one she wronged." Margaret reached into her purse again and pulled out a business card. "This is my son's private security chief. His name is Robert. He will get you into the building. Go now, before they find a way to silence you for good." "Me? Go to Sterling Tower. He'll have me thrown out." Margaret grabbed Maya's hand. She looked directly into her eyes, her own filling with a fierce, protective fire. "He will listen, because you are not just telling him about Sophia. You are telling him his fiancée framed an innocent woman. His pride won't let that stand." She scribbled one last thing on the napkin. "Show him this. It's the wire transfer from Sophia's offshore account to Jessica's. It was made this morning. The payment for the wine. The final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just a frame-up. It was a conspiracy." Maya looked at the PI report, at the wire transfer receipt, and then at the kind, terrified woman in front of her. Her shyness was gone, burned away by a cold, sharp rage. "Okay," Maya said, her voice hoarse. "I'll do it." Sterling Tower was a monument of glass and steel in Midtown, a middle finger to the New York skyline. Maya Thompson, still in her rumpled server's uniform, marched into the lobby, her heart hammering. The air hummed with power. She went to the main security desk. "I need to see Nathaniel Sterling." The security guard, a man built like a refrigerator, gave her a look of utter disdain. "Mr. Sterling doesn't take walk-ins." "It's an emergency," Maya said, her voice stronger than she expected. "It's about Sophia Dubois." She pushed Margaret's business card across the marble. "Robert, his head of security, is expecting me." The guard's demeanor snapped to attention. He picked up his phone. A moment later, he pointed to a private elevator. "Penthouse floor." The elevator doors opened directly into a sprawling office that looked more like an art gallery than a workspace. The entire south wall was a window overlooking Manhattan, and standing in front of it, looking furious, was Nathaniel Sterling. "You have 5 minutes," he snapped, not turning around. "Robert is on his way. I don't know what kind of game you and my mother are playing, but I don't appreciate being ambushed by—" "I was fired today, Mr. Sterling," Maya said. He turned, surprised by her interruption. "That's not my problem." "It is," Maya said, walking forward. She dropped the manila envelope on his massive, empty desk. "I was fired for stealing a $3,500 bottle of wine. A bottle that was planted in my locker by a waitress named Jessica. A waitress who, according to this private investigator's report your mother hired, is an acquaintance of your fiancé." Nate's face went from annoyed to dangerously still. He stared at her, his eyes trying to X-ray her, to find the angle. With a sharp, impatient sigh, he flipped open the envelope and began to read. Maya watched, her heart in her throat, as his jaw clenched. He flipped a page, and another. The office doors burst open. "Nate, darling, I cannot believe—" Sophia Dubois stopped dead. Her smile, which had been bright and brittle, vanished when she saw Maya. "What is she doing here? The little thief! I was just at L'Etoile having a celebratory lunch with Henderson. I told him he did the right thing, firing her. She's pathetic. Her words hung in the sterile air. Nate didn't look at Maya. He looked up from the papers, his face a mask of cold, controlled fury. "A celebratory lunch?" he said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. Sophia, sensing the trap, faltered. "Well, yes. To celebrate. Getting rid of a criminal. She upset your mother, Nate. She upset you, Sophia." Nate held up the last page from the report. "The wire transfer. Is that why you wired $10,000 to Jessica's bank account this morning at 9:15 a.m.? Sophia's face drained of all color. That's a forgery. She's lying. That little waitress. She's trying to extort us." "She's not the one with 4.5 million Swiss francs in debt, Sophia," Nate said, dropping the paper. "She's not the one whose family shipping empire was liquidated in 2018. She's not the con artist. You are." "Nate, you can't!" Sophia shrieked, lunging for the desk, for the papers. "Robert," Nate barked into his intercom, "get up here. Escort Ms. Dubois out of the building. She is not to enter our properties again. Her belongings will be sent to wherever she's going." "You can't do this to me. I'll tell the Post. I'll ruin you," she screamed as the impassive head of security, Robert, took her firmly by the arm. "You're welcome to try," Nate said, turning his back on her. The doors clicked shut. The silence was absolute. Nate Sterling stood by his window, his back to Maya, for a full minute. When he finally turned, the arrogance was gone. In its place was a profound, bone-deep exhaustion, and a shame so deep it was painful to see. She was right," he said, his voice hoarse. "My mother. She told me. For months. And I told her she was confused. I dismissed her. I'm sorry." The silence that returned to the penthouse office was heavy, absolute, a vacuum left in the wake of Sophia's furious, shrieking exit. The click of the heavy door ceiling was deafening. Nate Sterling stood by his wall of glass, his back to Maya, for a full minute. He didn't move, his shoulders rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. He looked down at the city he owned, at the thousands of windows reflecting the afternoon sun, each one a life he would never know, a story he would never hear. He had just discovered, with brutal clarity, that he hadn't even known the story happening in his own home. Maya was still standing in the middle of the vast, minimalist office. She was a trespasser in this world of cold marble and billion-dollar views, still in her rumpled, wine-stained server's uniform. She had no job, no money, and was the star witness in a scandal that would rock New York society. She should have been terrified, but she was just numb. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. When Nate finally turned around, he looked different. The sharp, arrogant impatience was gone, stripped away. In its place was a profound, bone-deep exhaustion, and a shame so deep it was painful to see. She was right, he said, his voice hoarse, not directed at Maya, but at the room, at himself. "My mother. She told me. For months. She said, 'She's not right, Nate. She has hard eyes.' And I told her she was confused." He looked at Maya, his gaze finally meeting hers, truly seeing her for the first time. Not as a clumsy waitress, not as a parlor trick performer, but as a person. "I told her she was lonely. I told her it was the deafness making her paranoid. I told her she was jealous of Sophia, of me, of having a normal life." He walked, not to his desk, but to a leather chair facing away from the window, and sank into it, running both hands through his perfect hair, messing it up for the first time. My God, I didn't just ignore her. I managed her. I put her in a box, a comfortable, soundproof, gilded box. I told her I was protecting her, and all I was doing was protecting myself from the inconvenience, from the effort. He looked up, his eyes bleak. Sophia didn't just find that box. She locked it. And you, Maya, you didn't just pick the lock. You blew the whole damn thing up. Maya finally found her voice, though it was small. I just did what anyone would do. No, Nate said, his voice hardening. No, they wouldn't. Do you know how many people work for me? Hundreds. How many people are in my social circle? Thousands. Not one of them ever looked at my mother. Not really. They just shouted at her. And you, a shy waitress, terrified of your own shadow, risking your job, you looked. He fell silent, the weight of his own failings pressing down on him. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, the billionaire returned. His posture straightened. The cold, precise energy snapped back into focus. He wasn't ashamed anymore. He was angry. And when Nathaniel Sterling got angry, worlds moved. He stalked to his desk and jabbed a button on his intercom. Diana, get me Richard Bloody Marseille on the phone. Now. Who is Richard Marseille? Maya asked. He's the owner of L'Etoile, Nate said, his voice flat. He's a coward who values my wine account more than his own staff. He's about to have a very, very bad day. The line beeped. Mr. Marseille on line 1, sir. Nate picked up the receiver. Richard. The voice on the other end was oily, sycophantic. Nate, what a pleasure. I was just telling... Shut up, Richard. Nate cut him off. I'm in my office with a young woman named Maya Thompson. Does that name ring a bell? There was a pause. Ah, yes. A most unfortunate incident. We had to let her go. Theft. A terrible... The theft, Nate interrupted, his voice like ice, was a frame-up, orchestrated by my ex-fiancée, Sophia Dubois, and one of your waitresses. A Miss Jessica. I don't have her last name. Knight, Maya whispered. Jessica Knight. Jessica Knight, Nate repeated. I am currently holding a copy of a wire transfer from one of Sophia's offshore accounts to Miss Knight's checking account, dated this morning, for $10,000. I also have a private investigator's report detailing their collaboration over the last 6 months. This unfortunate incident, Richard, is called conspiracy, defamation, wrongful termination. And I am about to call the New York Post, followed by my legal team, who will file a lawsuit against your restaurant so vast it will blot out the sun. The panicked squeaking on the other end was almost comical. Nate, please, I had no idea. Henderson handled it. What can I do? Here's what you will do, Nate commanded, pacing. You will go find Mr. Henderson and Ms. Knight right now. You will put them on speakerphone. You have 60 seconds. Nate put the call on his own office speaker. Maya could hear frantic, muffled shouting. A door opening. Mr. Marseille, what is... That was Henderson's voice. Jessica, get in here, now. You're on speakerphone, all 3 of you, Nate said. You're speaking to Nathaniel Sterling. A sharp intake of breath. Mr. Sterling. Henderson's voice was suddenly slick with panic. A terrible misunderstanding. We were just acting on the evidence we... Mr. Henderson, Nate said. You are fired, effective immediately. What? You can't. I just did. Richard, he's fired, correct? Yes. Yes, of course. Henderson, clear out your desk. You're gone, the owner yelped. Now, Miss Knight, Nate continued, you have one chance. You will tell me, right now, exactly what happened. You lie, you hesitate, and I will not only support the charges L'Etoile will be pressing against you for the theft you did commit, but I will add my own. Conspiracy. Fraud. You will be in a cell by dinner. A sob broke over the line. It was Miss Dubois! Sophia! Jessica shrieked. She came to me. She said Maya was a problem, that she was upsetting Mrs. Sterling. She said Maya was trying to get money to worm her way into the family. She said if I got rid of her, she'd give me $10,000. She said Maya was a nobody, and no one would even care. Maya closed her eyes. A nobody. No one would even care. Nate's gaze flicked to Maya, his expression unreadable. And the wine? It was Sophia's idea. She told me which bottle to take. She said it was expensive enough to be a real crime. I took it. I put it in Maya's locker right before my shift this morning. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Please don't send me to jail. I'll give the money back. You'll give it to Maya, Nate said coldly. And you will sign a full, legally binding confession detailing Ms. Dubois' involvement. If you do, I will ask the DA to focus on the conspiracy and defamation charges, and perhaps be lenient regarding the theft. But you are, unequivocally, fired. Richard, get them both out of your restaurant. I want their personal effects on the street in 5 minutes. Yes, Nate. Anything. Is that all? No, it's not, Nate said, walking back to his desk. Now we talk about Ms. Thompson. You will be issuing her a formal, written apology, which will also be sent to every employee on your staff, clarifying that she was the victim of a malicious conspiracy. You will expunge her record. You will provide a letter of recommendation stating in no uncertain terms that she is one of the most trustworthy employees you have ever had. And finally, you will be paying her a severance for wrongful termination, emotional distress, and defamation of character. My legal team will be in touch within the hour to negotiate the sum. If I find it unsatisfactory, I'll be buying your building tomorrow and turning L'Etoile into a parking garage. Am I clear? Crystal clear, Nate. Thank you. Nate hung up the phone without saying goodbye. The office was quiet again. Maya was shaking. She had just watched a man destroy 3 lives and save hers in the span of a 5-minute phone call. So, Nate said, sitting on the edge of his desk, the power thrumming off him. I treated you poorly, Maya. I dismissed you. I was arrogant. And I am profoundly sorry. Thank you, Maya whispered, clutching the PI report she was still holding. I don't know what to say. You just fixed it, Nate finished. That's what I do. I fix things. I break things. I move money. It's easy. He looked at her. What you did, that was hard. Now, what about your job? My job? Yes, you're currently unemployed. I can, of course, ensure you get your job back at L'Etoile, though I doubt you'd want it. Or I can make a call. Danielle, Percy, Jean-Georges, you can be a captain by tomorrow night. Name the restaurant. Maya looked down at her hands, the hands that had served $1,000 bottles of wine, the hands that had spoken a secret language, the hands that had been her brother's only voice. I don't think I want to be a waitress anymore, she said, surprising herself. I was only doing it to pay for my mother's medical bills, to hide. Nate nodded slowly. I know about your mother's bills. The investigator's report on you was thorough. My mother was very specific. He looked slightly embarrassed. My family office is handling them. All of them. Consider it an advance and damages. That's separate from whatever settlement my lawyers bleed from L'Etoile. Maya's knees felt weak. The mountain of debt that had defined her entire life, just gone. Mr. Sterling, Nate, please." He stood up and walked to the window again. "I'm offering you a job, Maya, a real one. Not as a waitress, not as an assistant. Something else." He turned to face her. "My mother, as you saw, has been a ghost. A polite, smiling ghost in my home. Since my father died, she's faded. He was a difficult man. The wolf. He saw her deafness as the ultimate weakness, a flaw in the Sterling brand. And I think I did too. I thought I was protecting her, but I was just continuing his legacy, humoring her. But last night, at that table, a small, genuine smile touched his lips. I haven't seen that woman in 20 years. She was alive. She was angry. She was funny. She told you she despised kale. I've been forcing kale salads on her for a decade. It was incredible. All because of you." "I just talked to her," Maya said. "Exactly. You talked to her, not at her." He continued. "The Sterling Foundation has existed for 30 years. Do you know what it does? Nothing. It's a tax shelter, a name on a plaque. My mother has always wanted to do something real with it. Advocacy for the deaf community. Scholarships for ASL interpreters. Funding research. But I never took it seriously. I never gave her the resources or the control." He was standing in front of her now. "She needs a partner, not an employee I hire for her. Someone who is hers. Someone who is her voice when she needs one. Her translator, her chief of staff, her ally. She trusts you, Maya. And after today, so do I." "What? What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you to run it. With her. Co-director of the Sterling Foundation. You'll have the full financial backing of Sterling Industries. An unlimited budget, within reason. My lawyers, my accountants, my PR team, all at your disposal. You and my mother will have final say on everything. You will build this from the ground up." Maya's head was spinning. "Nate, I'm a waitress. I have a high school diploma and a year and a half of community college. I don't know how to run a foundation. I don't know how to do any of this." "You have something none of my Harvard MBAs have," Nate said, his voice soft but intense. "Lived experience. You have empathy. You know what it's like to be invisible. You know what it's like to fight for someone who can't be heard. And you have courage. You walked in here, into the lion's den, in your goddamn work uniform, and you took on Sophia Dubois. You think you can't handle a charity board meeting?" He smiled. "We can teach you how to read a balance sheet. We can train you in corporate governance. That's the easy part. The vision, the heart, that has to come from you, from my mother. So what do you say?" Maya looked from his earnest, intense face to the city sprawling below. She thought of her tiny, cramped apartment. She thought of the pile of red-stamped bills. She thought of her mother, safe for the first time. And she thought of Leo, her brother, who had died believing the world would never truly make a place for him. Tears welled in her eyes. I would be honored, not for me, but for her, for Margaret, and for my brother. His name was Leo. "Leo," Nate repeated, nodding. "I like that. The Leo Thompson Scholarship Fund. It has a nice ring to it." The intercom buzzed. "Sir," Diana's voice came through. "Mrs. Sterling is in the lobby." "Send her up," Nate said. "And Diana, hold all my calls for the rest of the day." The elevator doors opened, and Margaret Sterling walked in. She was not the polished, perfect matriarch from the restaurant. She looked frantic. Her hair was slightly out of place, her eyes wide with anxiety. She hadn't heard. She didn't know. She looked from Nate's calm face to Maya's tear-streaked one, and her hands flew up. "What happened? Is she okay? Did he hurt you? Nate, what did you do? Did you believe her? Where is Sophia? Maya stepped forward, and for the first time, she was the calm one. She was the one in control. She raised her hands, her movements clear and steady. It's okay, Margaret. He knows. He believed me. Sophia is gone. Margaret's hands went to her mouth. She stared at Maya, then at her son, as if waiting for the trick. Gone, she signed, her movement small. Gone, Maya confirmed. He fired the people who framed me, and he wants us to run the foundation. Together. You and me. The wave of emotion that broke over Margaret Sterling was staggering. It wasn't just relief, it was vindication. Years of being silenced, of being called confused and senile and paranoid by her own son, by the world. It all washed away. She rushed to Maya and pulled her into a fierce, tight hug. And then the formidable, untouchable matriarch of the Sterling family just sobbed. She wept into Maya's shoulder, deep, shuddering sobs of a grief and a loneliness so profound Maya felt it in her bones. Maya just held her, stroking her back, whispering, "It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. It's over." Nate stood frozen by his desk. He was a fixer, a man of action. He knew how to handle a hostile takeover, a market crash, a screaming fraudster. He had no idea what to do with his mother's tears. He just watched, his guilt and his relief warring, his hands clenched and unclenched. Finally, Margaret pulled back, wiping her eyes, though the tears still came. She looked at her son. Her hands were shaking, but her signs were sharp. You finally listened. What took you so long? She is a snake. I told you. I told you for a year. Why? Why her? Why did you listen to her and not me? Your mother? Maya, her own eyes wet, translated softly. She wants to know why you listened to me, and not to her. Nate swallowed, the knot in his throat hard. Because I was arrogant, and a fool. He looked at his mother. And because she was brave enough to show me the proof. Proof I never bothered to look for. I'm sorry, Mother. I am so sorry. He didn't know the sign. The words felt hollow, useless. Margaret looked at him, her gaze searching. Then she turned to Maya and signed. He says he's sorry, but he doesn't mean it. Not really. He doesn't know how. She says you don't know how to be sorry, Maya translated, her voice trembling. Nate flinched, as if struck. She's right, he whispered. He looked at Maya, his expression desperate. How do I... He gestured to his hands. How do I say it? I need to talk to her, for real. This, Maya realized, was the true victory, not the job, not the money. This. She smiled, a small, watery smile. Okay. She took a breath. She showed him the sign, a closed fist circling over the heart. Sorry. Like this, she guided. He watched her, then awkwardly, clumsily, he raised his own hand. His movements were stiff. He mirrored her, his fist circling his chest. He looked at his mother. Sorry. Margaret Sterling watched her son, her brilliant, powerful, stubborn son. His first word. She didn't cry. She just smiled. A small, knowing, beautiful smile. She raised her own hand. It's a start. She then launched into a flurry of signs, her energy returning, the light back in her eyes. Oh, the foundation. Maya, we have so much work to do. Our first gala, a scholarship program, for interpreters, like you, and a program at Juilliard for deaf actors. We can build community centers. We will change this city. Maya laughed, translating the torrent of ideas for Nate, the two of them falling into an easy, new rhythm. Nate watched, not just his mother, but Maya. He watched her hands. He watched her face, now alive and animated, her shyness completely gone. He held up his own hand, halting the conversation. He looked at Maya, his face open and vulnerable. He moved his hand again, this time with more confidence, from his chin forward. "Thank you." Maya Thompson, the shy waitress, the ghost in the gilded cage, met the billionaire's gaze. She wasn't a nobody. She wasn't invisible. She had a voice, and she had never felt stronger. She smiled and signed back. "You're welcome." And that's the story of Maya, Margaret, and Nate. It started with a silent plea for help and ended with a new voice being heard. Maya thought she was just a shy waitress hiding from the world. But her one act of kindness, her knowledge of a language most people ignore, exposed a web of lies and betrayal. She didn't just get justice, she found her purpose. This story proves that true strength isn't about how loud you can shout, it's about how carefully you can listen. What did you think of Sophia's ultimate karma? Have you ever felt like Margaret, invisible in a crowded room? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories are what make this community. Don't forget to like, share this video with someone who needs it, and please subscribe for more real-life drama every week.